Hi there. Recently, we focused a lot on mistake proofing in preparation for our webinar coming up very soon. See our website for more information. We've talked a lot about how organizations that naturally make mistakes can learn from those mistakes and put actions in place to stop them happening again and again. Now, I want to talk about how continuous improvement organizations will not only stop mistakes from happening again and again, but they will also preempt and prevent mistakes from happening in the first place. So with any change that they are putting in place, they will ask the question, what could go wrong? And then identify those things and put actions in place to stop them happening in the first place. Now, the important thing here is that those mistakes are preempted and prevented. There are dozens of different ways you could do that. We like a tool called failure prevention analysis just because it's easy to use. Anybody can pick up and use this tool with a 5-minute explanation, which is what I'm going to give you now. So failure prevention activity, basically how to ensure that what you are doing, your activity, your change, your improvement is successful. So let's just walk through this quickly. So we want to remove or mitigate the risk of failure by identifying the things that can go wrong and taking action to fix those potential problems. And we split the tool into 2 phases, basically thinking caps. What are all the things that could go wrong? So a bit of brainstorming there. And then hard hats. So that's identifying the actions to stop that mistake from happening. And you can sometimes eliminate that mistake from happening altogether. And sometimes you can't, but sometimes what you can do is you can minimize the impact of that if it did happen, or you can reduce the likelihood of it happening. But again, there's still action that needs to be taken there. So what you get out the other end, which is what's the most important thing, is a list of actions to make sure that you can be more successful in delivering your change. So let's walk through an example. I always think examples are the best way to learn anything. Here's an example where an organization is introducing a new digital service. Lots of organizations doing this, and I'm sure yours is no exception. And the task we're going to look at here is that we have been tasked with launching the service to our customers. So let's start with what could possibly go wrong. And here's an example of the template. Now, attached to this, depends if you're watching it on the website, there'll be a copy on our website. If you're watching this in an email from us, there'll be a copy attached to this email, but there are materials from us for you with the templates on them and a cheat sheet, which I highly recommend. But the first thing we do is we put our thinking caps on, so that's a template, and we say what could go wrong. Okay, so we brainstorm all the possible failures. Now, here we've just identified a few that you can see on this template there in the far left-hand column. So the materials delivered late, the publicity materials are delivered late. Some of the materials are unsuitable. Our customers are uninterested. And actually, one of the failures is that we might be unable to determine whether we've been successful or not. So we have an undetermined measurement of success, which is something we see quite often in organizations. The next thing to do is to say, how would we know if that failure had happened? And you can see there some examples. So the undetermined measurement method, we would know that was happening if we got to the end of the launch and we said, well, were we successful or not? That would tell us that that failure had actually happened. And then we take the next 2 columns, likelihood and impact. And we always take them one at a time, all of the likelihoods and then all of the impacts. And for both of those, we're on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 is very small and 10 is very high. So very small impact, very high impact, very low likelihood, very high likelihood. So we do all the likelihoods first. So 8 is high, 1 would be low, and then we do all the impact scores. Again, 10 is high, 1 is low, and then we multiply those 2 scores together to give us an overall rating. And then starting with the highest number first, we rank them. Okay, we then move on. Once we're happy, we've captured all the possible failures and we've done our scoring, to hard hats. And hard hats is where we again take those possible failures and we just ask 2 questions. We ask, can we stop that happening altogether? Can we eliminate that failure from happening? And if we can't eliminate it altogether, then can we make it less likely to happen, or can we minimize the impact? So can we reduce the failure, either through making it less likely to happen, so minimizing the likelihood, or through minimizing the impact? Sometimes you can do both, sometimes you can only do one. Okay, so let's take an example up here. The undetermined measurement method we can absolutely eliminate by agreeing up front how we would measure success. But things like the publicity materials delivered late, that's outside our control. That comes from a third party. So the ways we can reduce it is to be absolutely clear on the expected date of delivery and to make that way in advance of the launch date, so that actually we are reducing the impact if it does get delivered late. I hope that makes sense. Now, for all of those failures, that you identified, you don't need to do the hard hat exercise, the identifying the actions for all of them. It might be that you had some likelihood and impacts that when multiplied together scored very low, like a 1 for likelihood and a 2 for impact, giving you a score of 2. That line in the sand of where you want to do the actions and where you don't is completely up to you. It depends on the risks, your failure appetite, if you like. So that is very much for each organization or individual to determine. And that's it. In a nutshell, identify what the possible failures are, identify the likelihood and impact of those failures. Then for all the high scoring ones, and again, that's up to you to determine whether you think it's high or not, you want to say, can I stop this happening? Yes, no, if so, how? And can I reduce, and if not, can I reduce the impact or the likelihood of that failure? Okay, hopefully that was helpful. Here are the resources available to you. We have a thinking cap scorecard and we have a hard hats template, and there's a cheat sheet that means you probably never need to watch this video again. I hope that was helpful.